Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the third report of the Sea Cargo Charter. My name is Lena Faber, and I work for the Secretariat of the Sea Cargo Charter. So before we dive in, just a few housekeeping rules. This webinar is public and it's being recorded, and we will share the recording afterwards with everyone who was registered and also on our social media. You will be able to ask questions to our speakers. Feel free to post them in the chat throughout the whole session, and then we'll take them at the end of the webinar at the Q&A session. I would like to introduce you to our speakers. Today we have 4 speakers, and they are all signatories of the Sea Cargo Charter. So we have Rasmus Bach-Nielsen, who is Global Head of Fuel Decarbonization at Trafigura and the Chair of the Sea Cargo Charter. We also have Iman Abdallah with us, Global Operations and Supply Chain Director at Cargill Ocean Transportation and the Vice Chair of the Sea Cargo Charter. We have Bernard Voigt, Head of Maritime Decarbonization and CO2 Transportation at Wholesome Trading, and Christian Bonfils, CEO at Copenhagen Commercial Platform. And the webinar will start off with some remarks from Rasmus and Iman, and then some insights from Bernard and Christian on the reporting. And as I mentioned, there will be around 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A at the end. Before we start speaking more about the report, I would like to know who's with us here today. So I would like to launch a short poll asking you how familiar you are with the Sea Cargo Charter so that we know what the audience is today. So maybe some of you are already signatories, some of you know more about the Sea Cargo Charter or not so much, and maybe some of you are hearing about it for the first time and need some more information about it. So I'm letting this run for a few more seconds. All right, I think that's already a good picture. So I'm sharing the results. So we have a few signatories here, which is great. And then about the same amount of people who are quite familiar and some not so familiar, and a few who are quite new to the Sea Cargo Charter. I hope that we have some interesting insights for all of you here today, and you're always free to share questions in the chat. So for those of you who are not so familiar with the Sea Cargo Charter, the Sea Cargo Charter is an association for ship owners and charterers to report their emissions annually and assess their activities against climate, against the decarbonization trajectories of the association. It was founded in 2020 with the Global Maritime Forum, and we currently have 37 signatories. The Sea Cargo Charter report is being published annually. So this year was the third Sea Cargo Charter annual disclosure report. And this year, 35 signatories reported the climate alignment of their chartering activities. And these 35 companies accounted for around 20% of global bulk cargo transported by sea. Next slide, please. So if you haven't had the chance to look at the report yet, feel free to scan it here or access it via the link in the chat. And this year marks a really important year for us because it was the first time that the Sea Cargo Charter reported against the new ambition of the IMO that that came out last summer. But we will hear more from that from Eman in a little bit. And I would like to turn to our first speaker, Rasmus. So Rasmus is the chair of the Sea Cargo Charter and global head of fuel decarbonization at Trafigura. And it would be great, Rasmus, if you could share in your own words why you think the Sea Cargo Charter is an important initiative and why the report is important. And then I think it would be great if you could talk also a bit about the scope extension to ship owners. For some background knowledge, so the Sea Cargo Charter was so far open to charterers who could already voluntarily report their own ships. And actually 9 of our signatories did so this year, with Trafigura being one of them. And as of April, we expanded our scope to fully welcome ship owners. So Rasmus, it would be really great to hear from you why you think that that was an important step for the initiative and why ship owners should join us. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Lena, and thank you to all of you for dialing in today. It's of course a privilege and a pleasure to sit here and talk about the SEC, which we are very passionate about. Just in terms of what are we reporting today, I will just spend a few minutes looking back, and then of course we need to look ahead and what the future brings. Looking back, when you start an initiative like the SEC, it's about finding your feet. Will it get supported? What can it bring? And again, creating your DNA as you progress. The challenge and the opportunity everyone has in today's world on shipping decarb is we don't know what the end result will be. We know where we need to go, which is net zero by 2050, ideally before. But then the big question mark is, how do we get there? And how fast do we get there? The first thing for the SEC, it's about standardized baselines. And what the industry did not have before, which many other industries are suffering from as well, we did not have standardized baselines from which we can compare and improve from. So in that sense, looking back and defining and looking into what is success, I would sort of make my first attempt, and the SEC would make the first attempt to say, well, we have been successful. Because we have been able to create a common reporting baseline with third-party validation from which external parties can rely upon. It's a big achievement. It was nowhere to be seen in the industry before. So in that instance, I'm proud to say that SEC has really been able to position itself as the global shipping transparency framework. First mission accomplished, but far from in the goal yet, because there's so much more to achieve by bringing in other people's or companies. In terms of transparency, and this is all about voluntary transparency emission reporting. So what is the data, and have we really improved by being together in the SEC? And here I can proudly say that we have improved, all of us who have been participating within the SEC. In terms of average reporting percentages within the SEC, we have gone from 84% in 22 to 90% in 21 to 22, and now we are at 93.2% in this year's report. So we have really accomplished significantly more transparency among the members. And here I come into like, what is the strength of being part of the SEC? And that brings me on to your question, Lena, like, so what can we do for others, and what can people and companies benefit from being part of the SEC? Well, the big thing is you're part of a group of like-minded global leaders, and I dare to say global leaders. And why is that? Well, global leadership is also about being courageous and taking a bit of risk and going out and being a bit naked in front of everybody else. And that's what we are all 37 companies here doing together. Fact is, no one has asked us to report emissions on a voluntary basis, but we're all doing it. Media is measuring on us what we are reporting. Recently, also on the well-to-wake, Emmanuel touch more on this. Why have we done it, and what does that mean for members being part of this? But the members have been courageous and strong in putting ourselves out there in front of others for judgment. It is super strong that companies dare it, and it's part of this global movement towards global transparency on what we need to do together in order to be able to improve on shipping decarb, not only reporting, but also around actions. If we don't have the baselines, it's hard to improve. So looking back, yes, we have increased transparency among global leading charters and operators. Again, it's courageous, and getting the baselines has been critical. Looking ahead, and in the last year, one of the accomplishments has been agreement to bring in ship owners to join the SCC. Why is that important? Well, we're all part of this emission. We're all part of the industry, the charters, the operators, they use the ship ownerships, and we can all truly benefit from having and running under the same reporting umbrella. SCC, not-for-profit, under the Global Maritime Forum umbrella, where we also have the Poseidon Principles for finance and for marine insurance. The key task that we have put ourselves in the steering committee is to also to align reporting methods. So we have the same reporting methods for both financing banks and for SCC. And when we reach that point, then the owners can really have extra benefits from joining this group that we are here. But again, a success criteria for the coming 12 months, I'm personally super optimistic, because we have seen that people are becoming more and more comfortable owning the data, reporting the data, and going out there talking about it. And yes, we are also being criticized because we are not aligned, most of us, with the recent well-to-wake. Iman again will touch on that, but it's being very ambitious to dare to go and report against something where realistically we have no chance to reach that target. But again, continue to increase reporting percentages, grow the global presence of the Sea Cargo Charter, and then continue to take leadership on implementing voluntary reporting on latest regulation and charge ahead, also ahead of the curve. And that's the joint sort of strength of all of us, and we are representing 20% of global shipping or tramper business. So there's no reason that we should not be able to grow and enforce and make SCC stronger in the coming 12 months. It's a great opportunity. Smaller companies can also benefit a lot. There's a lot of knowledge inside the SCC. The steering committee, the technical committees are strong. At the recent annual meeting, we had a specific session on insetting. A lot of companies have no clue what is insetting. What will hit this? Will it be something which we can use as an industry? Should we use it in the forward? We don't have the answer, but and this is part of the SCC. We are defining the DNA as we move on and as the industry progresses, and we do that together. So overall, happy to say SCC has been a success, but we are keen to develop it further to make it an even stronger foundation for global emission transparency reporting. And that is the success criteria for the coming 12 months. Thank you all for listening in, and I put the word on to you, Iman.
Thank you very much, Rasmus. And just in the intro, you mentioned also the benefits, which I think we will dive even deeper in with Werner and Christian, who will talk about the benefits of the data collection. Eman, you're the vice chair of the Sea Cargo Charter, and I already mentioned a bit that we moved to the revised ambition this year. But I think it would be great if you could kind of elaborate what is new in this year's report. And also Cargill has been reporting now for the third time already. So it would be great if you could also mention how the Sea Cargo Charter reporting has helped you in your decarb journey over these last 3 years. Over to you.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Lena. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you for everybody that is tuning in. So yeah, this has been quite an interesting year and major changes on our side. It's an honor to be the vice chair of the association. And as Rasmus, put it rightly, it's the association of leaders and first movers. And to me, it's the coalition of those that are daring and bold enough to say that, yeah, putting their names out there and taking on the responsibility to be transparent and taking on the responsibility to report on an annual basis on what is their emissions and what is their carbon footprint. So what has changed this year? A big milestone for Sea Cargo Charter is that we went from an association that was targeting to reduce emissions by 50% in 2050 to adopting the IMO's revised greenhouse gas strategy, which was issued summer of 2023. Now, there was an easier route, which was, okay, yes, we will adopt it, but let's wait and let's start from next year, because we were already well into 2023 and had already started collecting data and crunching the data based on the old methodology and the old trajectories. Instead, we were bold enough to say, no, we're going to adopt it from this year and going to a net zero target by 2050, which is obviously a significantly higher ambition. The ambition also includes 2 interim checkpoints, one in 2030 and another one in 2040. The 2030 checkpoint has a goal of minimum 20% reduction, striving for 30%. And then by 2040 has a minimum of 70% and a striving for 80% reduction. So as you can see, these are significant changes and very bold undertakings. The other major change, as Rasmus alluded to, which was moving to from tank to wake to well to wake, which includes both the emissions from extraction, production, and transport of fuel, as well as the emissions that occur during operations. So we've realized at an early stage into the life of the association that it's not enough to just take the fuel factors of what we emit on board the ships. Instead, we need to look at the whole life cycle to make sure that we are actually pushing for the right change and the right decision-making within our industry, but well far beyond within the fuel supply chain and industry as well. So I'm very, very proud that we have made those bold changes. And I think that has to be the focus going forward. What are we committing to? What is driving our behavior? What is driving our decision-making on each individual basis, on an each company, corporation basis, but also as a whole industry going forward. Now, you've asked me about Cargill and how has it been and how has Sea Cargo Charter helped us. Obviously, I'm the biggest advocate and one of the biggest advocates of Sea Cargo Charter amongst the other members, the founding members. And for us as Cargill, it has been the difference between night and day in terms of data collection. Today, the Sea Cargo Charter clause is the norm, actually, interestingly enough, with ship owners. We as operators, we're sitting in the middle between ship owners as well as our customers. And we need to make sure that, we have our finger on the pulse when it comes to data collection. And most importantly, accurate data. We have, as an industry, been depending on ETAs for the longest time. And suddenly, when we started thinking about decarbonization and how can we have a sustainable business and an operating model, we realized that, noon reports are not necessarily that accurate and that we need to collectively work together to make sure that we are extracting not just data, but actually correct data and accurate data. So that's one thing. And the other thing is the Sea Cargo Charter form and template, which, much to my surprise, we've realized that a lot of our customers are actually adopting and using the form even well before they become members. So that is also helping them to understand better their carbon footprint. Where are the bottlenecks? When you start looking at the data, crunching the data, analyzing the data, you also start manipulating the data to better understand where are those bottlenecks, which routes are emitting more than others, which segments emit more than others, how much does an intake differ in terms of carbon intensity, and so forth. So overall, it has been extremely positive. It has helped us tremendously. And, I've always said, and I'll continue to say, you can't improve what you can't measure. And the first step to measuring is to committing to transparency, committing to data collection. And only from there can we start making significant differences. So I thank everybody that is tuning in, and I'm hoping that you flood us with questions. This is why we're here. We want to if you have any, if you're curious about the results, about the report, about the methodology, about the association in itself, this is why we're here. So thank you, Lina, and back to you.
Thank you, Emma. And it's great that you already mentioned the data collection, because that's a great segue over to Berna. So Rasmus already mentioned the increased average reporting percentage this year. We had a reporting percentage of 93.2%, which is great, and it kept growing over the last 2 years. And Berna, you also wrote in your report, you wrote about the improvement of your own data collection, and you wrote that the SSC profoundly influences your business activities and decision-making in several ways. So it would be great if you could just elaborate on some of these. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Lena, and hi to everybody, and glad having this opportunity to speak to you today. I would like to ask a question on how would you like to know how to increase your response rate directly collected from owners from 63% to 87% just in a year. This is our study. I will tell you our study. How we achieved the significant increase in our response rate, and how our owners supported us through this journey. Since we are a seniority since 2021 June, Wholesome Trading and Shipping by the Sea Cargo Charter, we aim to bring transparency, as Emma and Rasmus clearly indicated. It is all about bringing transparency to our emission factors, while focusing on the maritime transportation, maritime decarbonization. Almost all our trades, what we do is, unfortunately, not like repeating voyages. It is spot shipments, individual shipments. We work directly with despondent owners, head owners, or vis-a-vis through our brokers. And I was very pleased when we received our first reporting annual climate score, which was 9.1% better than the target alignment curve. I was extremely happy, but then when I realized that our reporting percentage was only 63, meaning that we are only 9.1% was covering only our 63% of voyages, which we don't know what was the real transparency we can have out of it. It was very low, and what we done is we just said that what was the reason? What is the root cause out of this? So we did some internal investigation, and we found below topics: lengthy data collection process, extensive back and forth communication in between owners and internal teams. It was very time consuming, manually done process. There was also no standard approach, how to approach owners, when to ask, and so. And on the other end, it was an extra job on top of the daily responsibilities. From the owner's perspective, we also receive feedback why they were not responding to us, try to understand their perspective. They didn't have any clear reasons from us. Why are we collecting the data? We needed to clarify that more often. What was our objectives was not extremely clear to them also. And also they were reluctant on that there were multiple counterparty involvements towards them. So we chose, as out of this study, we come to the result, and we reviewed and revamped our process. First action, we partnered with a third party to handle our data collection. And while doing that, we also gave the responsibility on evaluation and validation of our data, so we can get a correct results. And on the top, it was a single point of contact towards our owners. We have multiple numbers of owners, and they could only be contacted with at least one company, one person. Simultaneously, we implemented charter party clauses for collecting our emission data from owners, and we made a prevention clause, meaning that final freight settlements can be delayed unless the data is collected from our owners. This was almost never used clause, but it was kind of like a prevention clause that we can also ask our owners to support us through our journey. And then we set clear objectives internally on the teams that they cannot close a shipment prior to collecting our CO2 emissions from our owners. We helped the process and digitalized it, integrated our system, directly connected with our third-party service provider. So this could facilitate a seamless data transfer in between and eliminated the manual work. It was a big push to all parties, internally and externally, and big chases, but at the end, it all worked together. I can say that it is all about setting targets, assessing the process, standardizing, while digitalizing the full value chain, let's say. By taking all these steps, ultimately, we achieved a response rate, 87%. Very happy with this result. And also we have a data which is very validated and correct data, let's say. And we have a platform where we can analyze this data and we can see our hotspots where we can see, we can discuss with owners, improve these results, how to decarbonize further our emission factors. We have incorporated these CO2 performance topics, what we find out of our platform, and implemented into our supplier performance discussions, like which is periodically, quarterly, or half a year. And we ask simultaneously owners' feedback on our Sea Cargo Charter process and on our how do they make their decision-making actions on decarbonization actions. Also, like our hotspots, which is long ballast can be, or unutilized vessel capacity, how do they see our improving on these hotspot topics? Maritime decarbonization is a collaborative effort. It requires all-together work at the end. We now have a higher ambitions to achieve 95% at least this year. So hopefully we will get there. We are not there yet. As I can see from our platform, we are behind it, but I'm very positive we will achieve it. We are on a mission to decarbonize our maritime shipments and bring transparency to the industry. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Berna. And yeah, congratulations on these 87%. That's such a great increase, and also with very creative solutions like your prevention clause. So I think that could be an inspiration for some other signatories maybe. I would now like to hand over to Christian Monfils from the Copenhagen Commercial Platform. Christian, you wrote in your reporting template that the climate alignment score provides you with information that enables you to facilitate discussions with ship owners and charterers on how to reduce the carbon footprint. So it would be great if you could elaborate a bit on how the data enables these discussions, and also what you found as the most important factors influencing the climate alignment score. Over to you.
Thank you, Lena. Thank you for having me on the webinar, and pleased to see that so many have joined. I think from us in the beginning, it was more to explain to both owners and charters what are the different indexes and what data are they showing. I think that sometimes they are a little bit misunderstood. In this case, this is not about vessels efficiency, but this is about vessels operational. So our approach have been to have owners and charters work closely together, first of all to improve, but also to overcome the overall challenge of the industry to get to zero. We have seen increasing interest from owners to understand exactly what kind of vessel are they taking on charter, and what kind of ships do they give to the charters. Why is a certain vessel efficient on the design, or why is a vessel not efficient in terms of the operation? So our approach has been that we measure on a quarterly basis. We share the data with owners and charters in a common, transparent way. And by doing it on a quarterly basis, that gives us time to react, facilitate a dialogue between owners and charters. And if you have a ship that starts to have a negative trend, it gives you time to react and improve. So I think it's very important that you facilitate that dialogue and start at early stage. I think in terms of reporting, I'm into what Rasmus and Bodeman said. I mean, it was about to establish a baseline. We have done that now. We are reporting in a transparent manner, and I think next natural step will be to look at data quality. Also, according to what Aman said, to focus on the quality of the data. I think that the 3 years that we have shared information between owners and charters, we have learned a lot about the quality of the data, or the lack of the quality data that the industry have had. So I think that's very, very important to improve that going forward. And then we are just happy to see that both owners and charters are joining, and we hope that this will grow.
Thank you very much, Christian. And I would now like to invite all of the speakers on the panel. And we are also joined now by my colleague Morgan, who is also part of the Sea Cargo Charter Secretariat and also part of the Secretariat of the Poseidon Principles for Banks and Marine Insurance. So we actually had quite some questions in the chat. Some of them were only sent to hosts and panelists, so we're not making them up. They were in the chat. So I would like to start with one maybe for Rasmus and Emma. So someone said that while the ambition of having owners on board is very noble, in practice, are you seeing having owners on board will reduce duplicate reporting pressures on owners? As a service provider, we see owners' crew having to report on long, tedious new reports and then being approached by charters with the Sea Cargo Charter templates as an extra report. So maybe Rasmus, we can start with you. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The answer is no. It will not increase reporting for ship owners. Charters, regardless, will need this data. We are moving into a new regime in the world where transparency and emissions is tremendously important, and particularly in our industry around emissions. So any ship owner can expect to be met with the requirement, at least from a large majority of charters. Now I make an estimate that emission reporting is a must. The fact is, if they join Sea Cargo Charter, it would only be even easier, because then they're reporting on the same metrics. So I don't see an increased burden at all. This is just how the new norm is. Emission reporting data is a must to understand for your clients.
Thank you, Rasmus. Is there anyone who wants to add on to this? Emma?
Yeah, and I think Rasmus summed it up pretty well. This is going to be the new norm, and ideally, if the charter and the owner are a signatory to Sea Cargo Charter, then we would be reporting on the same voyage anyway. So I agree, it's not going to definitely be an extra burden. It's not going to be extra work. You know, especially with the new regulations and CII, et cetera, knowing each and every voyage's carbon intensity is a must. It's not something that we can avoid going forward. Now, ideally, obviously, it's not, you know, instead of manual reporting, ideally we go into a digital era where, you know, the data is flowing just simply through APIs.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you.
Then maybe I can go to the next question, which is a bit different. So someone asked if we considered bringing brokers into the initiative. They say that as a service provider, we see charterers relying on brokers to reach out to ship owners to get access to a vessel and ask for the reporting. And despite the SCC charter party clause being there, brokers are not always responsive. So what can the Sea Cargo Charter and charterers do to bring them on board? Yeah, Rasmus, you want to answer?
Yeah, no, I can attempt. We like brokers. Brokers are adding value in the industry. However, brokers are not having ships on the water which emits CO2. So as such, there's nothing to report, you can say, from the business. But they're bringing two parties together, and it's those two parties who each respectively needs to report on emissions. So there's no plan as of now to bring brokers in. It's not because we don't like them, but they're not actually physically emitting emissions as scope 1 or scope 3 on the water.
Yeah, but if we feel at one point that brokers are going to facilitate, including those clauses in charter parties and facilitate the relationship between the owner and the charter, and there's really a need for it, we can always consider a different form of membership, as an observer member or something like that. But if we really feel that brokers are keen to be a part of the association and they will facilitate that relationship, by all means, something that we would consider.
Yeah, I think that's maybe a good time to also mention that the Sea Cargo Charter is really driven also by the signatories and by the decisions of the signatories. So also the scope extension to ship owners was a wish of signatories, and they formed a working group and then worked with the Secretariat for over half a year to make it a reality. So I think the Sea Cargo Charter is evolving, and anything that will make it a better initiative will, and if the signatories want this, then it could be possible.
And just adding up to that, agreement also from my side in terms that if there's an value to be value to be added, well then potentially bringing it in separately. It's an interesting thought actually, if that can assist bringing the whole industry together.
Yeah, I can also contribute from my perspective. It's really like brokers are not always responsive. It is up to us, like how do we explain what is the purpose behind it, and then how do we do our supplier discussions with them on the performance reviews, and they can be involved together with our owners, which adds value. So it is also like they need to be onboarded, even though maybe not as a seniority, but the topic is not only ship owners or charterers, it is for the full industry to become decarbonized.
Thanks, Berna. Christian, was there anything you would like to add on this question?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the brokers do facilitate deals. So I think it's important that we inform them and we make sure that they have the correct material about what we do. As said in this panel, they don't do heavy emission directly, but it's important that they are on top of what the direction the industry is going. So I think it's important that we, from our side, inform them about what goals we have.
Thanks. So I think we can move on to the next question, which was a slightly more technical one. And maybe I can take the one myself. So the question was, does the Sea Cargo Charter have the ambition to align the well-to-wake calculation with the Fuel EU methodology? First off, so you find our entire methodology in the technical guidance. Maybe my colleague Morgan can be so kind to also post that in the chat. The emission factors are currently taken from different sources, from the IMO, but also from Fuel EU and also from GRID. But once the IMO life cycle assessment guidelines are published, our aim is to be fully aligned with the IMO, as long as there are enough factors available. Yes, and another similar question is, what was the methodology used in the report for the determination of the greenhouse gas reduction, and is there any accepted norm internationally? And similarly, so our entire methodology is in the technical guidance, and actually also in the report, we have maybe a bit more of a digestible version of what our methodology is. And it's been developed by UMass and the Smart Freight Center, who is our technical advisory. And if you have any more detailed question on the methodology, please always send us an email, and then we can get back to you in writing. All right. So I would like to ask the next question, maybe Christian, to you first. So,
Lena?
Yeah.
So just to answer, sorry to interrupt, it's more the methodology. Just to answer it specifically, it's on the page 19 of the annual report. And what is it and what is the metric? It's the EEOI. So it's the total CO2 equivalent emitted during voyage. So that's the ballast laden divided by the amount of cargo transported times total distance laden sailed. So it's just a very brief sort of answer to the question and then a reference. Sorry. Yeah. There you go.
No problem. Great. Thank you. So yeah, maybe Christian, I can start with you and then everyone else can fill in. So what do you think are the biggest challenges ahead, both in terms of emissions reporting, but also in terms of in general decarbonization of shipping and for the Sea Cargo Charter?
Yeah, I think that it's very good that we have now established a baseline, and then we need to get more on board, and then we need to make sure that the quality of the data is of very, very high accuracy. I think that the data eventually can be used in terms of use them in contract, use them in loans, that you start to have loans that are linked to your emissions. So I think that would be a natural next step. And then eventually there need to be, we start to see that a little bit, but consequences if you have a bad operation where there will be ships that will be second tier because they are not efficient, and there will be trades where you'll be reluctant to do so. So I think that, again, just more transparency and then better data, I think that's very, very key. And then we can use that data for accelerating in terms of loans and contracts.
Thank you. Rasmus, Eman, Berna, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I can start. So what is one of the biggest challenges for shipping decarb? Clearly, we need to make purchase of green fuels competitive, and the deep shipping decarb lies there in a carbon levy or tax on fossil fuels to be decided in IMO. There are working group meetings taking place as we speak right now. I think one should not underestimate the importance of this meeting coming up in IMO. If we do get a cost neutralization between fossil and green, the road for deep shipping decarbonization is paved, and we all will have a realistic chance to reach the targets that IMO ambitiously have established, and that the SEC ambitiously and courageously have decided to follow.
Thank you. Berna?
I can add very few. I think Emma already mentioned about it, like the standardization and digitalization is very crucial, because like it's a big effort from both sides, from our side and from the data suppliers, which is our owners. And if it is standardized, it is digitalized, it is easy to collect it and not to do manual work. On the other hand, it is also alternative fuels. We have to availability of alternative fuels. There are alternative fuels, but it is the infrastructure is not ready, or it is not available. Even though like biofuels, if we want to use it, we don't have our routes are not allowing us to use it. So there has to be a frame which allows us to take advantage whenever we are ready. Even though we are ready, we cannot access it. So these kind of topics, I think, has to be regulated and implemented, probably coming soon.
Thanks, Berna. Eman, is there anything you would like to add to that?
I think the team has covered everything, and just to summarize, it's between regulation, right? That's very important, availability of fuel, and also affordability and scalability of new technologies. So hopefully, I started with the regulations because I think this is what's going to make it viable, and that will advance, and everything else will come and follow suit. So yeah, it's all of the above.
Thanks, Eman. So we can move to the next question, which was that if owners will get onboarded, whether that will kind of duplicate reporting in the Sea Cargo Charter, and whether we have any mechanisms to avoid duplication. And maybe I can start and then you can fill in. So I think we discussed this also when we opened up the scope for owners, but since I think it won't be a problem if there's reporting, because each company reports on their own portfolio, and we're not aiming for an aggregated we're not accounting aggregated emissions or anything in the association. But Eman, maybe you can fill in on this as well, because I think you were there on the discussions as well.
Yeah, Lina, so that's very well put. And you know, we're not aggregating, so it doesn't matter even if there is duplication, even if the same voyage is reported on 3 times and 4 times, it still does not matter. What makes the reporting methodology in Sea Cargo Charter extremely unique is that each company has their own trajectory, and there is no way that you can compare one trajectory with the other. The trajectory actually is an output of each company's fleet, the type of ships that they have, the routes that they have went on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what makes Sea Cargo. So basically, you can only say that you're competing against your own performance, and you have and your objective and your goal is to improve on your own performance. So as you said, it doesn't matter. We're not aggregating. And ideally, what we're trying to create by opening the door for ship owners is to increase awareness and to bring more on board to create the critical mass that will actually move the industry in the right direction. So that hopefully, when the strategy and the ambition become a regulation, then you have a united front that will advance these technologies and adopt these technologies and engage faster with fuel suppliers to make them available and put the infrastructure in place and build the right ships, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you, Iman. Unless there's anyone who would like to add to that, I would move to the next question. So it's in the same line as the questions about the brokers. So the question is, how do you see massive disruptions of new tool providers in the same segment? And are we looking to integrate them as part of signatories or other forms of collaboration? Maybe Rasmus, I would like to hand this one to you first.
Yeah, I can start. So what will more providers mean? Well, if they're bringing AI and technology forward, we only embracing it. This is all about third-party validation to ensure we report on the same guidelines, same basis. So embracing technology providers, the Sea Cargo Charter has made a conscious decision not to recommend anyone ahead of others. It will mean a significant vetting exercise, and then it could create an interest that we don't intend to have on certain companies. We don't believe it's helpful. But we can only welcome technology providers to increase skill set and capabilities in order for owners, charters, and everyone to report our and their emissions accordingly.
Thank you, Rasmus. Anyone who would like to add to that? No. Okay, great. Now we can move to the next question, which is, which place do you see to fossil LNG bunkering in the future? As well to wake should change the picture of this quite a bit. And I don't know who here is the expert on LNG, but please jump in, any of you who would like to answer this question.
I am not the expert, but what I know is based on the EU regulations 2040 or 2041, all the fossil fuels will be penalized by the ETS cost, meaning that with the greenhouse gases is high on these fossil fuels. So in this respect, the fossil LNG bunkering, especially based on the EU ETS shipping regulation, will be penalized. So this much I can contribute. I'm not the expert, not the technical person on this topic, but I do see there is a challenge coming up by 2040, 2041.
Thank you, Berna.
And I can only add one thing, but it's not an SCC statement. Methane slippage is real around LNG, and of course, as you go to well to wake, there will be certain challenges around that, but this is not an SCC statement as such, but it's just to try and attempt to answer the question.
Thank you. Then we can move to the next question, which I think would be interesting to hear from all of you. So the question is, does your organization use the SCC alignment internally? And if so, how? And do you calculate this during the entire year? And maybe I would like to ask Christian first to answer this question.
Yeah, I think we said before that we use it on a quarterly basis. We use it both for our own understanding, but mainly to facilitate the dialogue. I mean, this is owner's vessel that emit based on moving charters cargo. So I think it's very, very important that we facilitate that dialogue and understand. And I think what we have seen is that, I mean, lots of new ideas are coming between owners and charters. We have seen owners and charters co-investing, and I think that's a very responsible approach. I mean, realizing that both parties have a responsibility, and co-investing in energy-saving devices, looking at how we can change contracts going forward. So I think there's a very open dialogue. So yes, I think I would say we almost use it on a daily basis, but just more for the transparency and to understand either a trade or a ship.
Thanks, Christian. Eamon, over to you.
Thank you, Lina. Yeah, I mean, we definitely use it internally. So we report regularly against the Sea Cargo Charter, but we also have our own internal target, which is 30% reduction by 2030. So we report on both, and yeah, we calculate it on a daily basis, on a per voyage basis, and we share the report obviously within the wider organization so that everybody keeps that in mind, and hopefully that drives, as I said before, the right decision making. Thank you.
Thanks, Eamon. Bern, I mean, you already talked about it a bit, but is there anything you would like to add on that?
Exactly. I talk about it. We included in the CO2 targets, or what is the score coming from the owners, into our performance topics, like when we do performance reviews with owners, but also internally, we do have our own analytic reporting for the scope 3 targets, which is on the group, Holcim group targets. And then we do report it annually also. And on this one, we do have IMO targets we follow, and we were very happy when the IMO went to well-to-wake and more ambitious targets, which was matching with our own Holcim group targets. So we do aim to reduce our emission factors, but as it is scope 3, it is only collaboration together with owners we can do that.
Thanks, Berna. Rasmus, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I can say, of course, we are also using the data as it gets compiled. A recent action, which I'm very happy about, is one of the team members on the chartering team, which literally sits next to where or sits in the action, is becoming more and more engaged on the sidelines of our sea cargo charter activities, and he was part of a steering committee meeting as well recently. So we are actually trying to bring the sea cargo charter even closer to decision making on the desk, where I'm not personally myself sitting, but as a company we are really trying to bring these parts together, which hopefully and ideally should increase awareness and in the future also decision making. So definitely taking it on board and using it.
Thanks, Rasmus. So we have 3 questions left from the participants. One of them relates to the baseline of the oil and chemical tankers. And maybe I would like to take that question offline with that person if they can reach out to us, because I think it's just a bit too techy to tackle here. But the next question is about the ship owners. So the person is wondering, what is the level of interest so far from ship owners? And yeah, how are we doing on the onboarding? Berna, maybe I can address this to you first, because you're also part of our onboarding committee.
Correct. And what I aim is my second role in the company is like the CCUS CO2 transportation. And I have onboarding myself like in discussions with ship owners, which is liquefied CO2 transportation. And while I am doing my discussions, my first question is, how do we maritime decarbonize these? And my second question is, I openly discussing onboarding these owners, because carrying a liquefied CO2 cargo, which is part of a decarbonization as a full picture, we should have also their actions and then join them into a Sea Cargo Charter. So community. So this is my approach, and I do see as a very positive approach. So I do believe at the end of the year we will get good results, having onboarded at least my guest carriers, I can say.
Thank you, Berna. Anyone would like to add on to that? If not, then I would like to move to, I think, the last question.
Sorry, Lena, I just want to answer
Yes.
the part, will ship owners be part of the working group?
Mm-hmm.
So ship owners, any signatory will be part of a working group and will definitely be also part of the technical committee if they choose to. So I just wanted to clarify that. So as Rasmus said in the beginning of the webinar, just by becoming a member and becoming a signatory, you have a seat at the table and you're part of the discussion and the decision making.
Thanks a lot for emphasizing that, Emma. Yeah, so the last question by our participants is, when will the preferred pathway become the only pathway to follow for all signatories? And I think this requires some introduction for those who don't know what the preferred pathway is. So this is about verification. And so far, the Sea Cargo Charter has two different pathways, the allowed and the preferred pathway. The allowed pathway means that each signatory can collect the data and calculate the climate alignment themselves, and then publish this in the report. The preferred pathway means that to some extent verification has to be included in that process. So at least the calculation of the final score would have to be verified. And so far, the rule is that signatories after 2 years of joining have to move to the preferred pathway. And I don't have the number ready right now of how many have used it already in this year's reporting. But it will also in the future be included in the report, actually. Then you can see which signatories are using the preferred pathway and which are not. And as of next year, a lot of our signatories will have to move to the preferred pathway, actually. Rasmus.
Yeah, and just to add to what Lena is saying, we are very cognizant around the fact that it's a new thing for companies to come in and to start having a reporting requirement. It can be uncomfortable or uncomfortable in the sense that not knowing what is required, and for that reason we have allowed for the two pathways. So it's really to accommodate the big bridge that people can potentially see for themselves, and so it's really to accommodate new members, not to put pressure from day one.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so we're also coming to an end, and I would just like to ask all of you for some final comments before we leave today. Christian, maybe I can start with you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just I can only recommend as many as possible to join the Sea Cargo Charter. We have been very, very pleased to be involved, and I think that lots of rules and regulations are changing and affecting our industry. And I think the days are over where we need to adapt. Now we really need to change it. And I think this is a very, very good forum to be part of and having that discussion. How can we accelerate it?
Thanks, Christian. Berna, over to you.
Well, I look forward to our continued efforts for the maritime industry to make it more sustainable altogether. And this can only be done by being onboarded or working together, supporting each other, or be part of the Sea Cargo Charter, which is our mission. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Emma.
Yeah, so we've adopted the saying of together we will make zero carbon shipping a reality, and the word together to me is very well represented and signified by the association and by Sea Cargo Charter. So yes, as Kristen and Berna said, this is definitely the coalition of the willing and the coalition of those that are bold, that want to be prepared, because it's not a matter of if anymore, whether we will decarbonize or not. It's a matter of how and by when, really. So let's collectively work together so that we are well prepared when the ambition and the strategy becomes a regulation, so that we can accelerate and move forward much faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Iman. And the last word goes to you, Rasmus.
Yeah, I'm really pleased about this whole hour. I think it's been a very good session, a lot of excellent questions. Again, the more we are, the stronger we can navigate and help push shipping decarbonization forward. That's what SCC is all about. It's about transparency, being together, and creating baselines that we can all grow and build from. I'm very optimistic for what has happened over the last year, and I very much and thoroughly look forward to what we are going to do in the coming 12 months. So from my side and from everyone here, I think thank you for dialing in, spending an hour of your time.
Yes, and thank you to all of you, Rasmus, Verna, Iman, and Christian. And yeah, if you who are listening are interested in becoming a member of the Sea Cargo Charter, please reach out to us. And yeah, you can leave any remaining questions in the chat or send them to us via email, and we're very happy to address them. Thank you all, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Yeah.